In modern life, when the pressures of work, family, and society pile up, many people turn to Buddhism as a path to peace. One of the most common questions asked when someone first enters a temple is, does one have to be vegetarian to be considered practicing? If I am not vegetarian yet, can I still be regarded as practicing? At first glance, this question seems simple, but it holds a deeper meaning, for it touches the essence of practice itself. What does it mean to practice? What is the purpose of practice? And is vegetarianism truly a prerequisite for attaining peace? Throughout his lifetime of teaching, the Buddha never regarded vegetarianism as an absolute standard for judging a practitioner. Instead, he taught that being vegetarian is a supportive condition, a wholesome means to nurture compassion, reduce the karma of killing, purify body and mind, and create favorable conditions for a calmer mind. When we eat vegetarian food with compassion, each meal becomes a reminder to honor and respect life. However, if we treat vegetarianism as the ultimate goal, or worse, as a measure to judge and compare ourselves with others, then we have fallen into the trap of attachment. In that case, rather than cultivating compassion, vegetarianism could unintentionally nourish arrogance and discrimination. Buddhism teaches that practice means transformation. To practice with the body is to refrain from harmful actions. To practice with speech is to avoid words that cause harm. To practice with the mind is to maintain purity, not to be dominated by greed, anger, or delusion. If someone is strictly vegetarian yet harbors anger, jealousy, and frequently speaks harsh words, that person cannot truly be called a practitioner. Conversely, if someone is not fully vegetarian but lives kindly, generously, knows how to let go, loves others, and helps those in need, that person is still walking the true path of practice. Of course, vegetarianism is a wholesome act, for it reduces suffering for living beings and plants seeds of peace within consciousness. By being vegetarian, we lessen harm, create fewer negative karmic seeds, and the mind naturally becomes more still. Yet food is only a means. The mind is the true destination. A vegetarian meal filled with gratitude and compassion nourishes both body and spirit. But a vegetarian meal coupled with judgment and superiority cannot bring real peace. In one Dharma talk, a Zen master told the story of two friends. One had been vegetarian for over 10 years, but often criticized those who still ate meat. The other ate meat but was always kind and helpful, offering his seat to the elderly on the bus, donating to flood victims. The Zen master asked, "If you had to choose a companion on the path of practice, whom would you choose?" The answer startled many. Practice is not just in what we eat, but in whether our hearts hold compassion and tolerance. Modern life brings countless challenges. Some want to be vegetarian but must entertain clients for work. Some live with families who do not eat vegetarian, making it hard to prepare separate meals. Some are not accustomed to vegetarian diets and worry about their health. These situations are not absolute barriers to practice. What matters is maintaining compassion, living mindfully, and reducing harm to life within one's capacity. For example, if one cannot practice full vegetarianism, one may start with 1 day a week or reduce the amount of meat consumed. Each time we prepare or eat a meal, pausing for a few moments to reflect on the efforts of countless beings that made the food possible can already be an act of practice. Even a small shift in awareness is the beginning of the path. Vegetarianism is one step forward, but cultivating the mind is a lifelong journey. On this journey, each time we speak one less hurtful word, lose our temper one time less, or let go of one envious thought, we move closer to peace. When we practice in this way, whether our meals are vegetarian or not, our hearts remain serene. And when the mind is at peace, the outer world feels lighter. The ancients said, "One who eats meat but has a kind heart is better than one who eats vegetarian but speaks with malice. This is not to belittle vegetarianism, but to remind us that practice is the harmony of body, speech, and mind. Vegetarianism is good, but without cultivating the mind, its benefit is limited. True practice requires both: eating vegetarian food to nurture compassion, and cultivating the mind to transform within. When we understand this, we no longer judge people by what is on their plate, but by how they live and treat others. Then we can truly embody the compassion and wisdom the Buddha passed down. In today's fast-paced life, remember that practice does not demand changing everything in one day. Each day that we live with a little more awareness, a little more love, a little less greed, anger, and delusion, we are already walking the path of peace. And when the mind is at peace, every meal, vegetarian or not, becomes a Dharma practice. After discussing vegetarianism and practice, many may ask, if practice is not just in what we eat, then where does true practice begin? The short answer is, practice begins in the mind. The Buddha taught that the mind is the root of all actions. When the mind is wholesome, actions are wholesome. When the mind is defiled, even seemingly good deeds carry seeds of unwholesomeness. Therefore, training the mind is always more important than clinging to appearances. In reality, we are easily deceived by outer forms. Seeing someone in a brown robe, wearing a conical hat, walking slowly into the temple, we may assume they are pure in practice. Seeing someone strictly vegetarian, attending ceremonies, reciting sutras regularly, we may think they have attained realization, but appearances can mislead us. If we judge only by external form, we may miss the true essence of a person. There is an old story from the Buddha's time. A monk was diligent in chanting and rituals, performing them daily with great devotion, earning respect from others. Yet within, he still nourished envy and comparison with his brothers. One day the Buddha asked him, "Why do you chant?" The monk replied, "World-honored one, for liberation." The Buddha smiled. "If your mouth chants sutras but your heart is full of anger, you are only binding yourself further." These words awakened the monk. From then on, he not only continued rituals, but also observed his own mind in every small action. When a negative thought arose, he recognized and released it. When anger surged, he reflected to understand its roots, then transformed it. Gradually, he became gentle, kind, and truly respected by others. In modern life, this story remains deeply relevant. We may spend much time on external forms of practice, visiting temples, bowing, reciting. But if outside the temple we remain quick to anger, clinging, and speaking words that hurt, then our practice has not yet touched the roots. Cultivating the mind is not something distant or abstract. It begins with the very small moments of daily life. When stuck in traffic, irritation arises and we want to push ahead. But then, recalling the Buddha's teaching on patience, we take a deep breath and let go of the urge to compete. When someone speaks harshly, instead of reacting immediately, we pause to understand that they too are under their own pressures and suffering. Sometimes cultivating the mind means knowing how to forgive ourselves. Many people think practice requires immediate perfection, but in truth, practice is a lifelong process. Along the way, we will stumble, lose our temper, and have unwholesome thoughts. What matters is that after each incident, we recognize it, refrain from harsh self-blame, and view it as a lesson for growth. The Buddha once compared the mind to a garden. If neglected, weeds will overrun it. But if we patiently plant wholesome seeds, water them with mindfulness and compassion, the garden will soon blossom with fruit and flowers. Cultivating the mind is tending that garden. There will be sun and rain, but as long as we nurture it each day, the blossoms of peace will inevitably appear. So how do we cultivate the mind amid a busy life? First, by observing ourselves. Each time a strong emotion arises, pause and breathe deeply. Do not rush to react. Just 3 slow breaths create enough space to see more clearly. Second, practice gratitude. Each morning before beginning work, recall 3 things to be thankful for. This softens the heart and shields it from negativity. Third, let go of what is unnecessary. Some burdens only weigh us down. When we release them, we discover openness and lightness within. Cultivating the mind also means planting joy for others. A sincere compliment, a small helping hand, a smile to a stranger, all are wholesome seeds. By planting them, we nourish our own mind as well. Many think that practice requires leaving ordinary life behind, retreating into monasteries or forests. But the Buddha never taught that. He said every place, every moment can be a Dharma hall if we live in mindfulness. Washing dishes, cooking, working, or caring for family, all can be practice as long as we are fully present, not letting the mind wander or be ruled by afflictions. Outer forms of practice are visible, but cultivating the mind is the root. When the root is strong, branches and leaves flourish. If we care only for appearances but neglect the root, the tree cannot withstand storms. Likewise, if we cling to form and neglect the mind, adversity will easily topple us. Thus, remember, practice is not for others to praise, but for ourselves to find peace. That peace does not come from outside, but from a tranquil heart. And the heart becomes tranquil only when we return to care for it, transform it and nurture it every day. If vegetarianism nourishes compassion and cultivating the mind transforms the inner root, then letting go is the key to opening the door of inner freedom. For most of our suffering does not come from what happens, but from our attachment to it. A famous Zen story tells of 2 monks walking along the road. They met a woman by the riverbank, afraid to cross the rushing water. One monk carried her across and continued walking with his companion. For the rest of the journey, the other monk remained silent, troubled. At last he spoke. "We are monks, we should not touch women. Why did you carry her?" His friend smiled. "I put her down by the river long ago, but you are still carrying her in your mind." The story teaches us that often it is not the event itself that causes suffering, but our habit of holding on, carrying it in our hearts until it becomes a burden. Some hold grudges for years, and each recollection cuts anew. Others cling to old successes, unable to move forward. Still others carry hurtful words long after they were spoken, letting them wound the soul again and again. Letting go does not mean indifference or apathy. It means accepting what has already happened and not letting it bind us any longer. In letting go, we free ourselves from the grip of the past and the shadows of the future to live fully in the present. Yet letting go is not easy, for the human mind loves to hold on. We believe holding on protects us, when in fact it often deepens our pain. Imagine someone gripping a rope that is being pulled hard. The tighter the grip, the more the hand bleeds. Only by releasing it does the pain end. Spiritually, it is the same. Some burdens only release us when we let them go. The Buddha taught that the root of suffering is attachment, clinging to body, feelings, thoughts, and the sense of self. When we believe everything is mine, me, or belonging to me, we fear loss and change. That very fear is what makes us restless. Understanding impermanence and non-self is the first step to letting go. Seeing that everything changes, that even this body is not truly me, we lighten our grip. In daily practice, letting go can start with the smallest things. Let go of one argument in a conversation. Let go of the urge to control others. Let go of excessive expectations of loved ones. Let go of an item no longer needed. Each release brings a little more freedom. Some find freedom the moment they let go of a prejudice. Once they thought only their way of life was right and all others wrong. But in letting go, they opened their hearts to learn and discovered a far richer world. Some only smiled freely after letting go of a grudge. They realized hatred does not hurt the other. It only exhausts oneself. Forgiveness is not because the other deserves it, but because we ourselves deserve peace. Letting go is also a lesson in trust. Trusting in karma, we no longer obsess over how others treat us. We know each person reaps the fruit of the seeds they sow. Our task is to sow wholesome seeds for ourselves. In today's world, pressures from work, social media, and relationships stretch the mind constantly. Without letting go, we burn out. Letting go is not giving up, but choosing what is truly worth holding. Keep good values, nurturing relationships, and goals that help us grow. As for what unsettles the mind, have the courage to put it down. One effective practice for letting go is writing down the worries, fears, or resentments on paper. Then look at them and ask, will this matter a year from now, 10 years from now? If the answer is no, tear the paper and see it as released. It is also possible each night before sleep to close our eyes and imagine laying down every burden of the day. A hurtful word someone said, unfinished work, small mistakes of our own. Place them all down, leaving the mind empty and ready for a new day. Letting go is a skill, and like any skill, it requires practice. At first, it feels difficult because the mind is used to clinging, but the more we practice, the easier it becomes. One day we realize we are lighter in the face of matters that once kept us awake at night. At that moment, we understand that letting go is truly a gift we give to ourselves. After understanding vegetarianism, cultivating the mind, and letting go, the next question is, how do we maintain these virtues in the hurried pace of daily life? Many believe that to live peacefully, one must find a quiet place, abandon work, leave behind all responsibilities, and live like a hermit in the mountains. But the Buddha never taught that liberation was reserved only for those who left worldly life. He taught that even in the midst of daily life, we can live in mindfulness. Mindfulness is the ability to clearly recognize what is happening in the present moment, in body, in mind, and around us, without being swept away by thoughts, emotions, or external distractions. Mindfulness is like a lamp illuminating the path we walk. With light, we see each step, each obstacle, each small beauty that we might otherwise overlook. Yet in reality, our minds are often in the past or future more than in the present. We work while thinking of an upcoming vacation. We eat while worrying about tomorrow's meeting. Even when sitting with loved ones, our attention drifts to the phone. Because we are absent from the present, we miss countless precious moments. Living mindfully does not mean abandoning all tasks to meditate all day. On the contrary, mindfulness should be practiced in the simplest activities. When washing dishes, know you are washing dishes. Feel the water on your hands. Hear the clink of bowls. When walking, know you are walking. Feel your feet touch the earth. When eating, know you are eating. Notice the aroma, the taste, and be grateful for those who made the meal possible. Some ask, I am too busy. How can I be mindful all the time? The answer is, you don't need to be all the time at the start. Begin with just a few minutes a day. 3 minutes in the morning to sit and breathe deeply, or 5 minutes walking without a phone, focusing only on breath and steps. Gradually, these mindful moments will grow and weave into more parts of life. A great benefit of mindfulness is the ability to notice emotions as they arise. Normally, when anger appears, we are overtaken by it, speaking or acting in ways we regret. But with mindfulness, we recognize, anger is arising. Simply recognizing creates a pause, and in that pause lies the freedom to choose a wiser response. Mindfulness also allows us to savor simple joys more deeply. A cup of hot tea in the morning, the laughter of children, a gentle breeze, all become richer when we are truly present. These small joys nourish the heart, strengthening us for challenges ahead. The Buddha once said that the path to happiness lies not far away, but in each mindful step today. Mindfulness is the bridge connecting us to the peace already within. When the mind dwells in the present, we are no longer tormented by the past, nor anxious about the future. We simply live and cherish this moment. Of course, practicing mindfulness in daily life means there will be times we forget, especially when work piles up or emotions run strong. But each time we realize we have forgotten, that is not failure. It is another chance to return. Just like finding the road again after being lost, we walk on with more joy and steadiness. One helpful way to cultivate mindfulness is to choose a signal as a reminder. For example, every time the phone rings, take a deep breath before answering. Or each time you step outside, pause for a few seconds with your breath. Such small habits gradually anchor the mind more often in the present. Mindfulness does not erase worries, but it changes the way we face them. With mindfulness, we look at problems calmly, without hasty reaction, without being swept into cycles of anxiety. We respond with clarity, and the mind is less exhausted. Finally, remember, mindfulness is not a destination, but a way of living. Each day, each task, each breath can be an opportunity to practice. With persistence, mindfulness becomes a close companion, helping us live more fully and peacefully amid life's turbulence. If today's reflections lighten your heart even a little, take a moment to smile and appreciate this very instant. Peace is not somewhere far away. It begins within us in the way we see and live each day. And if you wish to continue walking the path of the Buddha's deep teachings with Dharma in motion, don't forget to like and subscribe so as not to miss any Dharma talks or meaningful stories. Each share is not only support, but also a way to plant more seeds of peace in the world. If mindfulness helps us be present in each moment, then the wisdom of impermanence helps us cherish life with gentleness. Impermanence is one of the 3 Dharma seals the Buddha taught, along with non-self and suffering. At first, the word impermanence may sound sad, reminding us that everything changes and nothing lasts forever. But if we look deeply, impermanence is truly the doorway to freedom and peace. Impermanence means that all phenomena, the body, feelings, thoughts, objects, and people, are in constant change, arising and passing away. Nothing stands still, nothing is forever as we imagine. Flowers bloom, then fade, the moon waxes, then wanes. Children grow old, joy passes, sorrow fades. Thus, impermanence is an undeniable truth, not just an idea or philosophy, but the very nature of life. There is a story from the Buddha's time. A young mother lost her only child. Overcome with grief, she went to the Buddha, begging him to use his power to bring her child back. The Buddha did not refuse outright. Instead, he told her, "Go and bring me a handful of mustard seeds from any household in the village where no one has ever died." The woman went eagerly, but from house to house she always heard, "Our home has seen death." By the end of the day, she returned empty-handed, but with a changed heart. She realized that death comes to all, and her pain was not unique. In that realization, she began to let go of despair, accept reality, and continue living. That story shows us that impermanence helps us see we are not alone in suffering, and also reminds us that all suffering will eventually pass. When going through a difficult stage, remembering that nothing lasts forever gives us strength to be patient and endure. On the other hand, when something good arises, understanding impermanence helps us treasure it more deeply. We know this joy will not last forever, so we live fully with it, savoring without clinging, like admiring a flower in bloom. Knowing it will fade makes us cherish each petal, each moment even more. In modern life, much of our stress comes from resisting impermanence. We want to hold on to a beautiful image of ourselves, a relationship, a job position, or an emotional state. But no matter how hard we try, everything changes. The more we resist, the more exhausted we become. Only by accepting impermanence can we truly be at ease. Understanding impermanence does not mean giving up or living carelessly. On the contrary, it makes us live more responsibly, because we know time is precious. We choose to say words of love while we can, rather than waiting until tomorrow. We seek reconciliation while there is still an opportunity, instead of waiting until it is too late. We cherish loved ones knowing they cannot stay with us forever. One practice to deeply absorb impermanence is to observe changes in nature. Each morning, notice how the sky is different from yesterday, how leaves change color, how flowers in the garden bloom or close. Recognizing daily change in nature helps us accept change in our own lives more easily. Likewise, observe the changes in our own body and mind. Emotions come and go like waves. Yesterday we were sad, today we feel lighter. Today we are happy, but tomorrow we may face challenges. Seeing this clearly, we no longer get lost in emotions, but remain balanced through ups and downs. Impermanence also teaches us to let go of trivial matters. When someone says something unpleasant, instead of holding on to it, we remind ourselves that the feeling will pass. The words will fade into the past. Knowing that everything changes keeps us from wasting time and energy on what does not matter. Most importantly, impermanence nurtures gratitude. Each morning, we are grateful simply to breathe, to have another chance to do something meaningful. We are grateful to still see the light, hear birdsong, and smell the fragrance of a meal. Knowing that one day all of this will end makes us treasure every living moment. The Buddha once said, "All conditioned phenomena are impermanent." When one contemplates and sees this clearly, wisdom leads to the end of suffering. Impermanence does not steal our joy, but makes joy more profound and pure, free from the fear of loss. Living with such awareness, we see that though life is short, it is immensely worth living, and every moment is a precious gift. If impermanence shows us that everything changes, non-self, anatta, goes even deeper. Not only are things impermanent, but even the self we cling to does not have a fixed, independent essence. This is one of the Buddha's central teachings, yet one of the hardest to grasp, because the idea of I is deeply ingrained in how we think, feel, and act. Non-self means there is no eternal, unchanging self separate from the world. Human existence is the combination of body and mind, and both are constantly changing. The body arises from material elements: earth, water, fire, wind. The mind arises from streams of emotions, thoughts, perceptions, intentions. Each of these arises and ceases moment by moment. There is no independent I outside of them, controlling everything. One story from the scriptures tells of Huineng, the sixth patriarch. Before ordination, he was just a woodcutter. One day, he overheard someone reciting a line from the Diamond Sutra: "Let the mind arise without dwelling anywhere." Instantly, he awakened. Later, as the sixth patriarch, Huineng often reminded disciples, when we no longer cling to I or mine, the mind becomes boundlessly free. The self we take as real is actually only a collection of concepts and memories. When praised, we are happy. When criticized, we are sad, because we think those words touch the me. But if we observe carefully, yesterday's me and today's me are not exactly the same. Thoughts, feelings, understanding, all have changed. If every part changes, how can there be an unchanging self? Non-self does not mean we do not exist. It means we do not exist as a fixed, separate entity. We exist in interconnection with everything. Our body depends on food, air, water, which come from trees, earth, sky. Our mind depends on experiences, teachings, and love from others. We are part of an endless stream of life, inseparable from it. When deeply understanding non-self, we become less selfish because we see harming others is harming ourselves. Helping others is helping ourselves. We argue less because we no longer need to defend a fragile I. We also suffer less because we see that praise or blame does not define who we are. In modern life, many conflicts in families, in society, arise because each person clings too tightly to me and mine. We want others to understand us, follow us, validate us. But if we loosen that grip, life feels lighter. Like traveling with less luggage, we can go farther without exhaustion. One way to approach non-self is to observe body and mind as flowing streams. When an emotion arises, see it like a cloud drifting across the sky of awareness. It comes, stays briefly, then passes. Do not identify with it. We are not the anger. We are simply experiencing anger. We are not the sadness. We are simply experiencing sadness. By not identifying, we can release and return to peace. Similarly, contemplate the body as a temporary borrowing from nature. Every cell, every breath comes from the world around us and will one day return to the universe. Understanding this, we fear death less, knowing it is simply returning to the greater flow of life. Non-self also nurtures humility. When we succeed, we see it is not only our effort, but countless conditions. Family, friends, colleagues, society. When we fail, we do not over-blame ourselves. Knowing failure too is the result of many factors and can be changed in time. Perhaps the greatest gift of non-self is inner freedom. When no longer bound by the fragile I, we no longer chase after proving our worth, nor compare ourselves endlessly with others. We live in the natural clarity and openness of mind, and happiness becomes light, unconditional. The Buddha taught, when one clearly sees non-self, the mind releases all clinging and attains nirvana. Nirvana here is not a place, but a state of mind no longer consumed by greed, hatred, and delusion. And non-self is the doorway to that state. After understanding impermanence and non-self, another essential truth of the Dharma that every practitioner must grasp is the law of karma, cause and effect. The Buddha did not teach karma as a vague belief, but as an objective reality, operating whether or not we believe in it. Karma means that every action of body, speech, and mind generates a corresponding result. Just like seeds planted in the soil, when the right time and conditions come, they sprout and bear fruit. Many people, when hearing about karma, think only of grand matters, such as committing evil and suffering in the next life. But the Buddha taught that karma manifests not only in great events, but in every small moment of daily life. A kind word plants joy in another's heart and immediately brings peace to our own. Conversely, a harsh word that wounds another first bears fruit as restlessness, regret, or tension within ourselves. In the scriptures, the Buddha often used the image of a seed to illustrate karma. Rice seeds give rise to rice plants, never mango trees. The seed determines the fruit. So too with actions, the results always correspond. This also explains why in Buddhism there is no true accident or blind luck. What we call luck or misfortune is simply the ripening of past conditions, sometimes from this life, sometimes from lifetimes long ago. A story from the Buddha's time tells of a monk who was often scolded by fellow monks without cause. Many wondered why, as he was gentle and harmless. The Buddha explained that in a past life, this monk had once insulted an innocent person. Now the old karma ripened into harsh words against him. But because he practiced well, he received this calmly, without resentment. That very attitude ended the cycle, preventing the karma from continuing into the future. The law of karma reveals an important truth. We are responsible for our own happiness and suffering. No one else determines our lives. Only the seeds we have planted and are planting now. This frees us from blaming others or circumstances and directs us to adjust ourselves. If we want good fruits, we must begin sowing good seeds today, in every thought, word, and deed. In modern life, understanding karma helps us be more mindful in relationships. We know that everything we send to others, whether encouragement or indifference, plants seeds both in them and in ourselves. So why not plant wholesome ones? A sincere thank you, a smile, attentive listening without judgment, all are good seeds that yield warm, lasting relationships. Karma is not punishment, but the natural reflection of the universe. When we throw a ball against a wall, it bounces back. When we light a lamp for someone else, we ourselves are illuminated. With this view, we no longer fear karma, but welcome it as a friend, reminding us to live more mindfully and kindly. To practice karma in daily life, begin by observing intention before action. The Buddha taught, "Mind precedes all things. If the mind is pure, words and actions will follow. If the mind is impure, words and actions will follow accordingly." Pausing for even one breath to examine our intention can prevent countless harmful actions or words. Another way is to view what we receive in life as the ripening of past seeds, and to consciously choose what future harvest we want by planting the right seeds now. When blessings arise, be grateful and keep planting good seeds. When difficulties come, see them as old debts being paid, lessons being learned, and adjust our conduct so as not to create further harmful karma. Karma also teaches patience. Some seeds sprout quickly. Like when we smile at someone, they smile back instantly. Others take years, like raising a child or building personal integrity. Trusting in karma keeps us from discouragement because we know every seed bears its fruit in time. And the wonder is, when we understand and live by karma, our lives become increasingly peaceful. We no longer fear the future, knowing it is shaped by what we do today. We no longer brood over the past, knowing what was sown will be reaped, but also knowing we can always plant new, better seeds. The Buddha said, "If you wish to know the past, look at the present. If you wish to know the future, look at the present." Each moment is fertile ground for planting seeds. Choosing what to sow is choosing our future. Understanding this deeply makes us live more responsibly, more kindly, and more peacefully. If impermanence helps us cherish life, and non-self helps us loosen the grip on I, then understanding karma helps us live responsibly. The natural result of practicing all three is letting go. Letting go does not mean neglecting life or being indifferent, but releasing attachment, releasing the grasp on what no longer serves us, so the mind can be free and at peace. In daily life, we cling to many things: possessions, reputation, opinions, memories, relationships. We hold on not because they truly help us, but out of fear of loss, fear of change, or simply habit. But if we observe closely, it is the clinging itself that causes suffering. Like gripping a rope being pulled hard, the tighter we hold, the more our hand bleeds. Only by letting go does the pain stop. A Zen story tells of a man who asked a monk, "Master, I want freedom. What should I do?" The monk smiled and said, "Let go." The man protested, "But I have already let go of everything." The monk replied, "Then let go further." This brief exchange carries deep meaning. Within us are layers of subtle attachment we may not even see, and letting go is not a single act, but an ongoing process. Letting go begins with external things we cling to excessively. It could be an old item we keep though never use, a job that no longer brings joy but we cling to out of fear, or a relationship that is no longer healthy but we hold on to out of loneliness. When we dare to let go, we create space for new, better things to enter our lives. More importantly, letting go also means releasing the inner burdens, painful memories, grudges, unrealistic expectations. Many people cannot find peace in the present because they still cling to the past. Yet the past exists only in our memory. It cannot be changed, and holding on to it only multiplies suffering. When we let go, it is as if we put down a heavy backpack and walk on more lightly. In modern life, letting go is especially vital because we live in an environment full of pressure and comparison. Social media easily pulls us into maintaining a perfect image, competing with others, trying to prove ourselves. Letting go here means stopping, returning to living authentically, accepting our own limits, and letting go of constant comparisons. A method of practicing letting go that the Buddha often taught is to contemplate the impermanent and non-self nature of whatever we are clinging to. For example, when holding tightly to an opinion, ask, "Will this opinion always be true?" When attached to an object, ask, "Can this object stay with me forever?" When grasping a relationship, ask, "Will this person surely always be here?" When we see clearly the changing, non-substantial nature of everything, letting go becomes natural. Interestingly, when we let go, we lose nothing real. We simply return things to their rightful place in the flow of life. What we receive in return is lightness, the ability to fully enjoy what we have, without being haunted by the need to hold it forever. Letting go also cannot be forced. We cannot just say, "I will let go immediately," if our heart is still full of attachment. Letting go is the result of understanding. When we truly see impermanence, non-self, and karma, our grip naturally loosens. Just as when we realize the rope we hold is burning hot, we drop it instinctively without anyone telling us to. A daily practice of letting go can be, each night before bed, to spend a few minutes reflecting on what we clung to today. Maybe it was someone's words that hurt, an expectation unmet, or a worry about tomorrow. Imagine each of these as a heavy object and gently set it down. Tell yourself, "Today is enough. Leave the rest for tomorrow." With this habit, we sleep more peacefully and wake more refreshed. Letting go does not make us passive. It helps us act more wisely. When the mind is not chained by fear or ambition, we decide from wisdom rather than impulse. We can love deeply without clinging, devote wholeheartedly without exhaustion, live fully without being crushed by outcomes. The Buddha once said, "The one who knows how to let go is the richest of all, for they are no longer bound by possessions, fame, or anything else." Letting go reveals that inner freedom is the greatest treasure, and it cannot be lost unless we abandon it ourselves. If letting go helps us put down the burdens of past and future, mindfulness is the way to truly live fully in the present. Mindfulness is one of the Buddha's core teachings, a practice that brings deep peace amidst the rush of life. Mindfulness means knowing clearly what we are doing, thinking, and feeling in this very moment, with awareness and without judgment. In daily life, we are often pulled in two directions, running back to the past with regret or resentment, or rushing forward to the future with worry or desire. Rarely are we fully present. The result is that even when the body is here, the mind is elsewhere, and we lose the peace already available in each moment. Mindfulness is the bridge that brings the mind back to the body, so we are truly present in our own lives. A Zen story tells of a disciple who asked his master, "Master, what is the secret of practice?" The master replied, "When walking, know you are walking. When eating, know you are eating. When washing dishes, know you are washing dishes. The student was surprised. Is that all? The master smiled. That is all, but you have never done it. Indeed, most of the time, we act automatically, doing one thing while thinking of another, missing the chance to live deeply with what is at hand. Practicing mindfulness does not require sitting in meditation for hours. It can begin with the smallest acts. When drinking a sip of water, feel the cool flow down your throat. When hearing a bird's song, really listen. When walking, feel the contact of your feet with the earth. Each moment of true presence is a moment we touch real life. In today's world, mindfulness is more needed than ever. We live in a flood of information, noise, and distraction. Phone notifications, emails, social media constantly pull our minds away. Mindfulness is the anchor that keeps us steady. At work, it sharpens our focus. At rest, it brings real relaxation. One great benefit of mindfulness is emotional regulation. When anger arises, if we can recognize this is anger instead of being swept away, we create a precious pause. That pause allows us to choose our response rather than react blindly. Similarly, when anxiety appears, simply breathing slowly and acknowledging this is worry already begins to dissolve its grip. Mindfulness also helps us appreciate the simple joys of life. A family meal, a sunny morning, a heartfelt conversation. If we are truly present, we see happiness is never far away. But if the mind always runs after what has not yet come or mourns what has passed, then even in favorable conditions, we still feel empty. To cultivate mindfulness, the Buddha taught the 4 foundations: mindfulness of the body, of feelings, of mind, and of phenomena. Observing the body, breath, posture, movements. Observing feelings, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Observing the mind, greedy, angry, deluded, or calm. Observing phenomena, seeing everything as impermanent, selfless, conditioned. Steady practice of these 4 builds mindfulness that remains unshaken by circumstances. A simple starting exercise is mindful breathing. Spend a few minutes each day just observing the breath in and out. Don't try to control it, just notice. When the mind wanders, gently bring it back. Over time, the breath becomes a bridge to return to the present whenever the mind drifts away. Mindfulness does not strip life of excitement. Rather, it makes each experience more vivid. When eating, we truly taste the food. When listening to music, we immerse in each note. When with loved ones, we truly listen and connect. Mindfulness turns ordinary moments into jewels of life. And the miracle is that mindfulness is always available. We don't need to buy it or search for it elsewhere. We only need to pause, take a deep breath, and recognize that we are here. That is the beginning of a serene life. Life always brings challenges and changes, but if the mind remains peaceful, we will no longer be swept away by the storms. Today's teaching is just a grain of sand in the vast treasury of the Buddha's wisdom. But if you practice with perseverance, it will become the foundation of a life of peace. If you find these reflections helpful, please press like to spread the message of the Dharma, and subscribe to Dharma in Motion to continue walking with us on the journey of planting seeds of peace in every heart. Your support is the motivation that helps us bring more Dharma talks and meaningful stories. If mindfulness is the awakened eyes that help us see truth clearly, then compassion is the warm heart that embraces life fully. In the Buddha's teaching, wisdom and compassion always go hand in hand, like the 2 wings of a bird. Wisdom without compassion can become dry and cold. Compassion without wisdom can turn into softness and sentimentality. Only when the 2 walk together is the path complete and truly leading us to peace. Compassion is not just pity or a fleeting feeling of sympathy when we see someone suffer. Compassion in Buddhism is a vast state of mind, wishing all beings to be free from suffering and to have happiness, without distinction of close or distant friend or enemy. It is love without condition, without expectation of return, not limited by borders, religion, or viewpoints. Some may ask, can I really love everyone, even those who harmed me? The Buddha taught that if we only love those who love us, that is ordinary. Anyone can do that. But to extend compassion to even those we dislike, or even to enemies, is the deeper transformation. For in doing so, we no longer let hatred dominate our hearts, but let compassion lead the way. One story in the scriptures tells that when the Buddha was still alive, a man constantly tried to insult and humiliate him. One day, after hearing a barrage of abuse, the Buddha simply smiled and asked, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man replied, "To the one who gave it." The Buddha said, "Likewise, the words you speak, if I do not accept them, they still belong to you." Not only did he not get angry, but he also generated compassion, knowing that the man was being driven by ignorance. This is the power of compassion joined with wisdom. Compassion does not make us weak. On the contrary, it makes us stronger because it frees us from the cycle of resentment. When we cultivate compassion, our hearts become open and light. We react less hastily to what displeases us. We desire less to win or lose, and we more easily find peaceful solutions in conflict. In modern life, compassion is also the medicine that heals division. Today's society is easily polarized by differences in opinions, perspectives, and lifestyles. If each of us could place ourselves in another's position, listen without judgment, and open instead of closing, distance would shrink and understanding would grow. Compassion does not require us to agree with everything others say or do, but it requires us to respect their dignity and their suffering. To nurture compassion, the Buddha taught the practice of metta bhavana, loving kindness meditation. We begin by sending blessings to ourselves. May I be peaceful, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I live in safety. Then we expand that circle to loved ones, to friends, to neutral people, and finally to those we find difficult. With daily practice, our hearts become softer and more inclusive. Compassion can also be expressed through very small acts in daily life. Helping an elderly person cross the street, sharing a meal with someone in need, listening to someone who is sad, or simply smiling at a stranger. Each small act is a seed of compassion planted in life, and it will sprout not only in the heart of the receiver, but also in the heart of the giver. One important point is that compassion must go hand in hand with wisdom, so it does not become blind compassion. So, for example, if someone is sinking in harmful habits, we may love them, but we cannot aid them in continuing to create negative karma. True compassion sometimes requires firmness to protect others from their own mistakes. This is why Buddhism always emphasizes the balance between compassion and wisdom. When living with compassion, we see our lives change. Things that once angered us lose their weight. People who once irritated us become easier to accept. And we realize that love is not something we give because others deserve it, but because our hearts are spacious enough not to be confined by conditions. The Buddha taught, victory over 1,000 armies is not as great as victory over oneself. That is the highest glory. Compassion is one way of conquering ourselves, overcoming selfishness, overcoming narrowness, overcoming the limits of ego. Then, not only do we bring peace to others, but we also free ourselves. If compassion broadens the heart, then patience, shanti, is the armor that shields the mind from the arrows of anger and injustice. In the Buddha's teaching, patience is not weak submission, but the strength of endurance and wisdom. It is the ability to keep the mind steady in adversity, not letting negative emotions dictate words and actions. people often understand patience as suppressing anger as mere endurance. But in Buddhism, patience goes deeper. It is patience with the path of practice, patience with others, and even patience with oneself. It includes three aspects: patience in adversity, patience with insult, and patience in doing good. Each requires continuous training. A story tells that when the Buddha was still alive, an ignorant man repeatedly came to insult him. Each time the Buddha remained calm, not responding. Someone asked, "Why do you not react?" The Buddha smiled. "If someone brings a gift and I do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man replied, "To the giver." The Buddha said, "Likewise, if I do not accept their words, they still belong to them." This shows the power of patience, not letting ourselves be dragged into the cycle of anger and argument. Patience is not blindly overlooking everything. Sometimes patience means waiting for the right time to act. A farmer knows that seeds need time to sprout. He cannot be impatient. Likewise, in facing difficulties, we must wait for the right moment, not letting temporary emotions ruin long-term outcomes. In modern life, patience is an essential skill. Amid job pressures, family conflicts, or social friction, we easily lose composure. But one who practices patience does not let a careless word or an impulsive act from others ruin their whole day. They know how to step back to see things more clearly, and when they act, it is with reflection, not impulsive reaction. Another benefit of patience is that it protects both mental and physical health. When we are angry, the body releases stress hormones that make the heart beat faster, raise blood pressure, and tense the muscles. If we remain in this state often, we easily fall into heart disease, hypertension, or even depression. Patience helps us lessen these negative effects, keeping body and mind balanced. Practicing patience can begin with the smallest of things. When caught in traffic, instead of being irritated, treat it as an opportunity to listen to music or observe your surroundings. When someone goes against your wishes, take a few deep breaths before reacting. When facing failure, view it as a lesson for growth rather than blaming or complaining. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha taught, patience is the highest practice, for it extinguishes the fire of anger, keeps the mind at peace, and nurtures compassion. One who knows patience not only avoids conflict, but also creates space for wisdom to arise. When the mind is calm, we see the nature of problems more clearly and can find better solutions. Patience is also the key to sustaining relationships. In marriage, friendship, or work, there will always be disagreements. If everyone insists on winning, relationships quickly fracture. On the other hand, if one side knows how to listen, restrain words, and yield when necessary, the relationship becomes more lasting. However, we must distinguish between patience and enduring abuse. Patience does not mean allowing others to harm ourselves or others. In such cases, patience must go hand in hand with wisdom, knowing when to remain silent and when to act to protect oneself and uphold justice. When training in patience, we gradually find ourselves freer. No one and nothing can easily shake our composure. Our minds become like a still lake, remaining calm even when the winds blow. And from that stillness, compassion, wisdom, and happiness naturally arise. If patience is the strength that helps us stand firm amidst storms, then letting go is the sail that carries us out of the stormy sea. In the Buddha's teaching, letting go does not mean neglect or irresponsibility, but a gentle attitude toward gain and loss, success and failure, praise and blame. When we know how to let go, our mind is free, our heart is peaceful, even while life keeps changing. Letting go is not just an act, but an art of living. It begins with recognizing the impermanence of all things. Everything in life, from a flower, a relationship, to this very body, goes through arising, abiding, changing, and ceasing. If we cling to them as though they will always be here, sooner or later, we suffer. Letting go is accepting this truth and not allowing the departure of anything to rob us of our inner peace. There is a story of a Zen master and his disciple. One day they crossed a stream and met a young woman unable to pass because of the strong current. The master carried her across. The disciple was surprised but said nothing. Throughout the journey back, he remained restless. Finally, he could not hold back and asked, "Master, why did you carry that woman? We are monks." The master laughed. "I put her down at the riverbank long ago. Why are you still carrying her?" The story shows that not only material things, but thoughts, memories, and judgments also become burdens if we do not let them go. In modern life, we often carry too much unnecessary luggage. Work pressure, others' expectations, sad memories, old wounds. Each is like a stone in our backpack, weighing down our steps. Letting go is daring to take out each stone and put it down so we may walk lighter. This is not easy because our minds naturally cling to possessions, to fame, to loved ones, to opinions. But when we clearly see that everything changes, we realize clinging only brings more suffering. Letting go does not mean indifference. We still love, still care, still do our best, but we do not tie our happiness to the result. We act with serenity, and when things do not go as planned, we still smile and accept. This is the attitude of do your best, leave the rest to conditions. One of the greatest obstacles to letting go is the ego. The ego makes us want to prove we are right, keep our pride, and be above others. Many relationships break, many arguments drag on, simply because no one is willing to lose. But looking deeper, we see that winning or losing in the moment is less important than long-term peace. When we dare to let go of ego, we truly win over ourselves. Practicing letting go can begin with small things. When losing an item, instead of regretting, think that it has fulfilled its role in our life. When someone is no longer by our side, cherish what was shared and wish them well. When plans fall apart, see it as a chance to discover a new path. In the Lotus Sutra, the Buddha taught that all suffering begins with attachment. As long as the mind clings to something, however small, it can pull us down. Letting go is the process of untying each rope, freeing the mind. That freedom is not given by anyone. We must find it ourselves with mindfulness and courage. The benefits of letting go are immense. When no longer burdened, we smile more easily, forgive more readily, and find happiness more often. We are no longer swept into the endless races of life, but can slow down and enjoy each moment. Letting go also makes relationships lighter, for we do not demand others be exactly as we want. Ultimately, letting go is a journey, not a destination. There will be times we think we've let go, but an old memory, a fear, or a habit pulls us back. That is fine, as long as we recognize it and keep practicing. Each time we let go a little, our hearts expand a little. And one day, we will realize that non-clinging is the greatest freedom. If letting go is how we release the bonds that tie us, then impermanence is the foundation that shows us why letting go is necessary. In the Buddha's teaching, impermanence is not a pessimistic idea, but the evident reality of all phenomena. It is like the breath. Whether or not we are aware, it happens every moment. Impermanence means everything changes. A flower that blooms beautifully today will wither tomorrow. A child will grow up. A young person will grow old, and eventually, all will leave this world. This change occurs not only over long spans of time, but in every moment. Each cell in our body is continuously being born and dying. Each thought in our mind comes and goes like clouds drifting across the sky. People often fear impermanence because it evokes loss. We want to hold on to the good things, to make permanent what is making us happy. But if we look deeper, we will see that impermanence is also hope. Because of impermanence, pain will pass. Because of impermanence, those who are misguided can change. Because of impermanence, a gray, rainy day can give way to a radiant dawn. There is a story about a powerful king who wanted to find a saying that could help him stay calm in any circumstance, whether happiness or suffering. After many years of searching, he received the phrase, "This too shall pass." When victorious, he read it to avoid arrogance. When defeated, he read it to avoid despair. That is impermanence, reminding us that nothing lasts forever, and what truly matters is our attitude toward change. In modern life, impermanence is more evident than ever. Technology changes every day. Relationships can change after just one message. Health can shift in a single morning. If we cling to absolute stability, we will be exhausted and disappointed. On the contrary, if we accept impermanence, we will appreciate what we have more because we know it will not always be with us. Understanding impermanence does not make us indifferent. On the contrary, it helps us live more deeply. When we know that time with our parents is not endless, we will call them more often and spend more time in conversation. When we know opportunities do not come twice, we will bravely seize them when they appear. When we know those we love can leave us at any moment, we will love them more fully in the present. Practicing contemplation of impermanence helps us let go of petty concerns. A harsh word today will not matter after a few months. A present failure can become the foundation for future success. And when we see clearly that everything changes, we will cling less, argue less, and our hearts will feel lighter. In the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha taught contemplation of impermanence as a way to shatter attachment to self. When we see this body as impermanent, we cling to it less as a fixed me. When we see emotions are impermanent, we identify less with anger or sadness. When we see all phenomena are impermanent, we understand that clinging only brings suffering. The greatest benefit of understanding impermanence is that we live more fully in the present. We do not postpone love. We do not delay happiness. We know this moment will pass, so we enjoy it completely. And when unwanted things happen, we are not too distressed because we know they too will pass. Impermanence is a truth everyone experiences, but only the awakened truly see it and live in harmony with it. The awakened do not resist change, but flow with it, using it for growth. They are like the rower who knows to go with the current, instead of struggling hopelessly against it. If impermanence helps us see that everything changes, then non-self is the deeper step, realizing that in all of these changes, there is no unchanging I to cling to. This is one of the core truths, and also one of the hardest to grasp in the Buddha's teaching, because from birth we are taught that I is the center of all experience. Non-self does not mean we do not exist, but that we do not exist as a fixed, independent entity, separate from the rest of the world. What we call I, this body, these emotions, these thoughts, is a collection of countless elements. Genetic inheritance, living environment, food, experiences, memories, all of these change over time, and so the I also constantly changes. Look at your body. Skin cells are constantly renewed. Blood is filtered and replenished. Even bones change over the years. No part of your body is exactly the same as when you were born. So where is this fixed I we often speak of? Psychologically, our emotions and thoughts are not fixed either. This morning you may be happy, this afternoon sad. What you thought was right today, you may change your mind about in a few months. If the I were truly unchanging, why would our feelings, opinions, and preferences keep shifting? There is a story about the sixth patriarch Huineng when he was still a woodcutter. He happened to hear a line from the Diamond Sutra, "Let your mind arise without dwelling anywhere." Instantly he awakened, realizing that all suffering arises from the mind clinging to a self and what belongs to it. From then on, Huineng entered the path of enlightenment and became one of the most remarkable Zen masters. In modern life, non-self may sound distant, but in fact, it is very close. Each time we cling less to our I, we feel lighter. For example, when working in a team, if we care less about who gets the credit and more about the result, cooperation becomes easier. In debates, if we do not cling to being right, we listen more deeply and understand others better. Non-self also helps us suffer less when facing loss. If we see someone as mine when they leave, the pain is unbearable. But if we understand that they are an independent being with their own journey, we can bless them instead of clinging. Practicing non-self does not mean denying ourselves, but widening our view to see that we are part of the whole. We are connected with others, with nature, with the universe. When we water a flower, we are also soothing our own soul. When we help someone across the street, we are planting seeds of joy in ourselves as well. A simple practice is to reflect on interdependence. The glass of water you drank this morning came from rain, rivers, and the effort of those who delivered it. The shirt you wear came from cotton, from farmers, from factory workers. When we see we are not separate from the world, we become less selfish and less centered on me. In the Heart Sutra, the line "form is not different from emptiness. Emptiness is not different from form" is also a way of expressing non-self. When we see all phenomena as temporary combinations of conditions, we stop clinging, and when we stop clinging, our minds are free. Non-self is the key to ending suffering, because most suffering comes from defending the self. Hurt pride, threatened honor, violated rights. When the self diminishes, those battles dissolve. And the miracle is, when we think less about ourselves, we find more happiness, because happiness comes from connection and sharing, not from isolation. Today's teachings remind us that true happiness is not in how much we accumulate, but in our ability to let go and live fully in each moment. Just by changing our perspective, chasing less, and knowing how to pause, we can take lighter steps through life. If you feel these reflections touch your heart, please press like to spread the message of compassion and wisdom, and subscribe to Dharma in Motion to continue journeying together in exploring and applying the Buddha's teachings in modern life. Each of your supports is a seed of peace planted into the world. If non-self helps us expand our vision to see ourselves and others as one, then compassion is the way we express that understanding outwardly. In Buddhism, wisdom and compassion always go together. Wisdom helps us see the true nature of life, while compassion helps us respond to that life with unconditional love. Compassion is different from pity. Pity looks down from above, seeing others as weaker than oneself. Compassion, on the other hand, is equal love, arising from the understanding that everyone seeks happiness and avoids suffering, just like ourselves. With compassion, we not only empathize but also wish to act to ease the suffering of others. There is a story about an old Zen master who kept a cat in the monastery. One day, the cat became seriously ill and cried out in pain. Many advised the master to bury the cat to end its suffering quickly. But the master patiently cared for it, spoon-feeding milk and soothing its pain until it passed away naturally. When asked why he did not let it die sooner to ease its pain, he replied, "When someone is in pain, what they need is not a quick end, but to be loved until the last moment." That is compassion, being there and offering support, not just seeking to eliminate suffering at any cost. In modern life, compassion is even more necessary. A competitive society easily hardens people, making them see others as rivals rather than fellow beings. The media floods us with negative news, and social networks are full of arguments and criticism. In such a context, compassion is like cool water soothing the heart, reminding us that no matter our differences in opinions, origins, or status, we all share the same wish: to be happy and free from suffering. Practicing compassion begins with small acts: smiling at a stranger on the street, listening to someone share without rushing to give advice, helping a colleague when they struggle. Sometimes just one small gesture can ease someone's burden, and the miracle is that when we give compassion, we also receive warmth within ourselves. Compassion is not only for others, but also for ourselves. Many people live harshly with themselves, blaming every mistake, criticizing themselves for not meeting standards. But if we cannot love ourselves, we cannot truly love others. Compassion for oneself means acknowledging that we, like everyone else, are still learning, still growing, and sometimes still making mistakes. When we can embrace ourselves, we can more easily open our hearts to the world. Some worry that if they live compassionately, they will be taken advantage of or seen as weak. But compassion does not mean weakness. A truly compassionate person knows how to say no when needed, not enabling harmful behavior. Compassion is the gentleness of the heart, but the firmness of wisdom. It is like a mother's hand, gentle in embracing her child, but firm in keeping them away from danger. In the scriptures, the Buddha taught the four immeasurables: loving kindness, metta; compassion, karuna; sympathetic joy, mudita; and equanimity, upekkha. Loving kindness is wishing happiness for others. Compassion is wishing for others to be free from suffering. Sympathetic joy is rejoicing in others' happiness. Equanimity is keeping the mind balanced, impartial. Among these four, compassion is one wing of the bird, paired with loving kindness, helping love soar without limits of borders, skin color, or belief. When we look at the world with compassionate eyes, we see fewer enemies and more friends. We understand that those who do wrong are also suffering and ignorant. This does not mean we accept or condone wrongdoing, but that we seek to transform it at its root. A gentle word can move more than a harsh scolding. A hand held out can connect more than a pointed finger. Compassion also has the power to spread. A compassionate person inspires others to live compassionately. A kind act today can plant seeds of goodness for tomorrow. And when many people plant such seeds, society will become less violent, less unjust, less cold. Ultimately, compassion is not something lofty or far away. It is the warmth in the eyes, the patience in listening, the timely hand extended. And when we practice compassion daily, we find ourselves richer than any wealth, rich in human connection, in kindness, and in inner peace. If compassion is the open heart, then sympathetic joy and equanimity are the wings that let that love fly far without growing weary. In the four immeasurables, joy and equanimity are balancing factors, keeping us from being swept away by extremes of emotion. They help us love without attachment, be happy without dependency. Sympathetic joy is the happiness we feel when others are happy. This joy is not envy or comparison, but genuine delight, like parents joyful at their child's growth or a friend rejoicing in another's success. This joy is serene, free of selfishness, and the more it is shared, the more it grows. In life, joy is not easy to practice. Often when others succeed, feelings of inferiority may arise within us. That is the human instinct to compare. But if we reflect deeply, we see that their happiness does not take away our own. On the contrary, their joy can inspire us and awaken motivation within us. A Zen master once said that when we learn to rejoice in others' happiness, our hearts expand twice as wide. Instead of having only one reason to be happy, when we ourselves succeed, we have hundreds. Every time we see someone smile, witness a kind act, or watch a seedling sprout from the earth, Equanimity, on the other hand, is the ability to keep the mind calm in both joy and sorrow. Equanimity is not indifference or apathy, but not letting the mind be carried away by extremes of emotion. When happy, we are not overly attached. When sad, we are not utterly devastated. Equanimity is like a still lake, reflecting everything yet not disturbed for long by anything. Practicing equanimity helps us not be bound by praise or blame. At work, if praised, we give thanks and continue doing well. If criticized, we see it as a chance to learn. In relationships, if someone loves us, we cherish it. If someone leaves, we accept it. Of course, reaching equanimity requires time, training, and reflection. A simple way to cultivate joy and equanimity is through mindfulness. When we are aware of the emotions we are experiencing, we are not controlled by them. For example, when seeing someone succeed and feeling a touch of envy, we can simply acknowledge, "Ah, I am feeling envy." That one acknowledgement helps us step back from the emotion and from there transform it into genuine joy. Joy and equanimity also help balance compassion and wisdom. If we only have compassion without equanimity, we may become exhausted from carrying too much of others' pain. If we only have wisdom without joy, life may become dry and colorless. When joy and equanimity are present, love endures and wisdom becomes warm. In the scriptures, the Buddha likened the 4 immeasurable minds to 4 great houses of the heart. Loving kindness is the house of expansive love. Compassion is the house of deep empathy. Joy is the house of radiant happiness. Equanimity is the house of steadfast peace. When we dwell in these 4 houses, we find that life, despite its many changes, always offers a place to return. Practicing joy and equanimity in modern life is also very practical. When you see a colleague promoted, instead of feeling jealous, congratulate them and learn from their journey. When your plans do not go as expected, instead of blaming, see it as an experience for growth. When misunderstood by someone, instead of reacting hastily, step back, breathe, and keep the mind balanced. A heart that knows joy and equanimity is a free heart, free from envy, from rivalry, from attachments to right and wrong, gain and loss. And when that heart is free, happiness comes naturally, without needing to be sought elsewhere. On the path of practice and mindful living, letting go is one of the most important practices. Without letting go, our minds remain bound by the past, by unfulfilled expectations, by unhealthy relationships, and by countless things that drain us. But letting go does not mean discarding or forgetting. It is an inner transformation, allowing us to continue living without being controlled by the past or attachments. Imagine you are clutching a hot stone. The tighter you hold it, the more your hand burns. Only when you drop it do you feel relief. Our minds are the same. When we cling tightly to pain, hatred, or things no longer suitable, we are the first to suffer. Letting go is freeing ourselves from unnecessary burdens. There is a Zen story of 2 monks walking along a muddy road when they met a young woman unable to cross. One monk carried her over and continued on. Later, the other monk grew agitated, reproaching his companion for breaking the precept by touching a woman. After several miles, the first monk replied, "I set her down at the edge of the mud long ago. You are still carrying her in your mind." The story shows that often what makes us suffer is not the event itself, but our holding onto it. In modern life, letting go is even harder because we are constantly stimulated by information, social media, and invisible comparisons. We easily cling to our online image, to others' approval, to past achievements. But everything changes. Without letting go, we become trapped in an outdated version of ourselves, unable to move forward. Letting go also means releasing excessive expectations. How many times have we been disappointed, not because life was too cruel, but because we expected it to be otherwise. When we love someone, we want them to always care as we imagine. When we start a project, we want it to succeed exactly as planned. But life does not always follow our script. When we release rigid expectations, we open ourselves to receive what comes, adapting instead of resisting. Part of letting go is forgiveness. Forgiveness is not excusing others' mistakes, but freeing ourselves from the burden of anger. Anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. When we forgive, we do not say what they did was right. We simply choose not to let their actions control our lives anymore. Practicing letting go begins with small things. Each night before bed, take a few minutes to release the worries of the day. Write them on paper, fold it, and set it aside. When someone says something unkind, breathe deeply and remind yourself that their words do not define you. When one door closes, remember that another may be opening. The Buddha taught that all suffering arises from attachment. When we see that everything is temporary, it becomes easier to let go. Like a flowing river, we cannot hold onto one drop of water, but we can enjoy its coolness as it passes through our hands. Letting go is not a loss, but creating space for new things to arrive. Letting go must also go with wisdom. We do not release core values, wholesome deeds, or necessary responsibilities. We only release what no longer serves our peace and growth. Sometimes that is a toxic relationship, sometimes an old habit, sometimes an outdated self-image we have already outgrown. When we practice letting go regularly, life becomes lighter. We get less caught up in meaningless dramas, lose fewer nights of sleep over the past, and worry less about the future. Letting go is the art of living in the present, with a peaceful heart unbound by what is lost or what has not yet come. If letting go helps us set down the burdens of the past and ease worries for the future, then living in the present is the foundation for keeping the mind at peace. The Buddha once taught, "The past is gone, the future has not yet come. Only the present moment is worth living." Yet most of us live as if the present is just a stepping stone, a temporary stop for some destination in the future. Many live in regret for what has been lost or anxiety for what has yet to arrive. We remember a past love and wonder, what if we had acted differently? We imagine future challenges and let worry consume us. And in doing so, we miss the beauty unfolding right before our eyes. There is a story of a Zen master walking with his student. They came across a field of blooming flowers. The master stopped, breathed deeply of their fragrance, and smiled. The student, impatient, asked, "Master, shouldn't we keep going?" The teacher replied, "If you cannot stop to admire a flower, you will walk through life without ever truly living." That story reminds us that the present is the only place where life truly exists. Living in the present does not mean ignoring the future or forgetting the past, but not letting them dominate our minds to the point of losing the now. The past is a lesson, the future a direction, but the present is where we truly act. Practicing presence begins with returning to the body and breath. When eating, just eat. Savor the taste, texture, and gratitude for the food. When walking, just walk. Feel your feet on the ground and the fresh air around you. When listening to someone, just listen, without rushing to prepare a reply. Each moment contains the fullness of life if we are present with it. In modern society, the biggest obstacle to living in the present is distraction. Phones, social media, emails constantly pull us away from the now. We eat while scrolling the news, talk while thinking of work. Our minds are fragmented, and we are never truly present where we are. Thus, a practical way to live in the present is to set aside moments free of devices, simply to live. The benefits of living in the present moment are immense. First, it reduces stress. because we are no longer burdened by worries about the future or regrets about the past. Second, it allows us to fully enjoy simple joys: a warm cup of tea, the laughter of loved ones, the morning sunlight. Third, it helps us respond more wisely to situations, since the mind is not clouded by old stories or vague predictions. Some people say, "But if I don't think about the future, how can I plan?" The answer is that you still plan, but you do so with a present mind, not obsessed with the outcome. When working toward a goal, you focus on each step in the present instead of constantly worrying about whether you will succeed. Living in the present does not mean being irresponsible. It means doing everything with awareness. When we are fully present, even ordinary tasks become sacred. Washing dishes is no longer a chore, but an opportunity to feel warm water on your hands and a sense of calm within. Cleaning the room is no longer just a duty, but an act of caring for your own space. Even in the face of difficulties, presence allows us to face them calmly, without being swept away by fear. The Buddha once used the image of a boatman to describe living in the present. The boatman cannot control the waters ahead, nor can he paddle back to change the waters behind. He can only row in the present moment, adjusting his course with each wave, and by doing so, the boat moves forward. When you live fully in the present, you realize that happiness is not something that will come later, but something that is already here. You don't need to wait until the project is finished, the house is bought, or the life partner is found. Happiness can be found in simply breathing, living, and sensing the light and sounds around you. If living in the present allows us to fully enjoy each moment, then understanding impermanence helps us cherish those moments even more. Impermanence means that everything changes. Nothing lasts forever, from a flower, a love, to our very body and mind. This is not only a fundamental teaching of the Dharma, but also an evident truth if we care to observe. Once a Zen master took his student for a walk in the forest. They came across an old tree shedding its leaves. The student sighed, "What a pity, the tree is withering." The master smiled, "Don't you see? The leaves fall to make way for new ones." That statement contained the essence of impermanence. Every ending is also a beginning. Impermanence is often misunderstood as negative because it is linked to loss. We fear loved ones leaving, youth passing, success fading, but precisely because everything changes, suffering cannot last forever. A heavy rain will stop, a deep sorrow will ease. If everything were unchanging, happiness could never arrive, because suffering would remain forever. Understanding impermanence does not make us pessimistic. On the contrary, it helps us appreciate what we have more deeply. Knowing that today may be the last time we see someone, we speak kindly. Knowing that a shared meal may not repeat, we eat more slowly, listen more attentively. Impermanence makes every moment precious. In modern life, impermanence is especially visible. Technology changes daily, trends come and go. Jobs that feel secure today may shift tomorrow. Recognizing impermanence helps us not be shocked when change comes. Instead of asking, "Why me?" we calmly accept and adapt. A Buddhist story tells of a mother who lost her only son and, overwhelmed with grief, sought the Buddha to bring him back. The Buddha told her to find a mustard seed from a household untouched by death. She went everywhere, but every home had known loss. Returning, she realized that death is inevitable for all, and her suffering was not unique. Through this, she began to let go and find peace. Practicing contemplation of impermanence can begin with small things: watching a flower bloom and fade, seeing clouds drift across the sky, feeling each breath in and out, each breath unique, never to return once it is past. By being aware that everything is changing, we cling less, and when loss comes, we are not completely shattered. Impermanence also reminds us to use our time wisely. Knowing that life is not endless, we waste less time on meaningless pursuits. We devote more time to family, learning, and things that truly bring value. Conversely, forgetting that time is limited leads us to procrastinate, thinking we have endless chances, only to regret when it's too late. Most importantly, understanding impermanence is not only about accepting loss, but about nurturing gratitude. Each morning we wake up, still breathing, still seeing the light. That is a gift. Every loved one still beside us is a blessing. With this gratitude, life, though changing, is always rich with meaning. What we have reflected on together are not just ancient teachings, but a compass for every step in our daily life. When we illuminate the mind with wisdom and nurture it with compassion, every challenge becomes an opportunity to grow and find peace. If these reflections have brought you stillness and strength, please click like to spread this positive energy to others. And don't forget to subscribe to Dharma in Motion to continue walking together on the journey of discovering and applying the Buddha's teachings in everyday life. Your presence and support are a great encouragement for us to keep sharing meaningful content. If impermanence helps us realize the value of each moment, then compassion helps us live each moment fully, with love and understanding. In the Buddha's teachings, compassion is not a fleeting emotion, but a quality of the heart that must be cultivated daily, like tending a garden. Metta is unconditional love, wishing others happiness. Karuna is the heartfelt wish for others to be free from suffering. When these two merge, we truly live a meaningful life. Once, someone asked the Buddha, "I have practiced for many years, but I still struggle to forgive those who have hurt me. What should I do?" He replied, "If you hold on to burning wood, hoping to burn someone else, you are the one who burns first." This answer reminds us that anger and hatred only harm ourselves, while compassion frees both. Compassion makes no distinction between near and far, friend or foe. That is what makes it difficult, since we naturally find it easier to love family than strangers, and easier to forgive friends than opponents. But Buddhist compassion transcends those limits. When we understand that everyone is affected by ignorance, that everyone has experienced suffering, our hearts open wider. The one who hurts us today may also be deeply wounded within. In modern life, compassion is not limited to monasteries or temples. It shows up in small daily actions, smiling at a stranger, listening to a stressed colleague, or helping an elderly person cross the street. These acts may seem small, but they create a powerful ripple effect. Because kindness spreads like fire, one lamp can light thousands of others without losing its own flame. Compassion must also go hand in hand with wisdom. Simply giving in to every request is not compassion, because sometimes that only enables unwholesome habits or harmful behavior. True compassion means helping in ways that bring long-term benefit, even if the person doesn't realize it yet. Just as a doctor may give bitter medicine to heal, not always sweet candy, the practice of compassion begins with oneself. Many people think self-love is selfish, but if we cannot love ourselves, we cannot truly love others. Compassion for oneself means accepting imperfections, treating ourselves gently when we make mistakes, and caring for body and mind in healthy ways. When we are at ease, love naturally flows outward. There is a simple loving-kindness meditation anyone can practice. Sit quietly, breathe deeply, and silently recite, "May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be free from suffering." Then expand these wishes to loved ones, to friends, to those we dislike, and finally to all beings. With regular practice, this gradually softens layers of anger and prejudice in the heart. Compassion transforms not only the receiver, but also the giver. When facing a difficult person, if we react with anger, we get pulled into negativity. But if we respond with calm and understanding, we keep our inner peace and sometimes even soften the other person. This is the transformative power of compassion. Imagine if each person in the world practiced just a little more compassion each day. How many conflicts would dissolve, how many misunderstandings would be resolved, how many lives would be uplifted. That change does not need to start with anyone else. It begins with each of us, in how we treat the person right beside us today. After speaking about compassion, a quality that opens the heart, we cannot overlook letting go, a quality that lightens the soul. If compassion makes us want to embrace the whole world, letting go ensures the world does not weigh us down. Letting go does not mean apathy or neglect, but releasing attachment to what is beyond our control. The Buddha once told the story of a man struck by a poisoned arrow. Instead of removing it, the man kept asking, "Who shot me? What is his name? Which tribe is he from? What is the bow made of?" While he was busy asking, the poison spread and killed him. We are often the same, caught up in questions we cannot answer while forgetting what truly matters, healing and moving forward. Letting go begins with recognizing that everything is impermanent. If we cling tightly to anything, a relationship, a position, a success, we soon become weary because life is ever-changing. One who knows how to let go understands that things come and go according to causes and conditions. When one door closes, instead of complaining, they look for the one that has opened. In modern life, letting go is more important than ever. Work pressure, social media, negative news, all easily weigh us down. Letting go here doesn't mean I don't care, but choosing what is truly worth our attention and letting the rest pass by. Like scrolling through social media, we can simply ignore pointless arguments instead of jumping in and exhausting ourselves. A Zen story tells of two monks who encountered a woman unable to cross a stream. One monk carried her across, then continued walking. Hours later, the other monk couldn't hold back and said, "Why did you carry that woman? We are monks." The first replied, "I put her down as soon as we crossed, but you are still carrying her." Letting go is sometimes as simple as setting down the burden in the mind instead of holding on to it. Letting go also applies to ourselves. Many imprison themselves in guilt or regret, replaying past mistakes with endless what-ifs. But self-blame cannot change the past. It only harms the present. Letting go here means learning from mistakes, then leaving them behind. Practicing letting go is not done in a single day. It requires mindfulness each time the mind begins to cling. When you notice yourself holding on to a thought, an emotion, or an outcome, pause, breathe deeply, and ask, "Is this within my control? Does holding on make me happier?" Often that question alone helps the heart release. Letting go also strengthens relationships. Instead of insisting others act exactly as we expect, we learn to accept differences. Instead of demanding loved ones always meet our standards, we allow them to be themselves. Without forcing, both we and they feel lighter. Ultimately, letting go is not loss, but liberation. When we put down burdens, our hands are free to receive new things. When we release negative thoughts, the mind has space for peace. Just as a room becomes airy, only when we clear the clutter, the heart becomes light when we let go of attachments. If letting go helps lighten the heart, then mindfulness is the anchor that keeps us steady in the waves of life. Mindfulness is the ability to clearly know what is happening in the present moment, in body, in mind, and around us, without being swept away by thoughts or emotions. The Buddha taught that mindfulness is the direct path to peace. For when the mind no longer runs to the past or worries about the future, it dwells in the present, the place where most suffering does not exist. Sadness and regret come from the past. Fear and anxiety come from the future. But right now, if we look deeply, most things are actually okay. Mindfulness is not just meditation in monasteries, but an art of living in daily life. When eating, know you are eating. Taste each flavor, chew slowly, give thanks for the food. When walking, know you are walking, each step steady, relaxed. When working, know you are working, focused fully on one task, instead of being scattered. In modern life, where people are pulled in many directions at once, mindfulness is medicine for information overload. Phones ringing, messages arriving, notifications flashing, our minds constantly jump from one place to another. Practicing mindfulness is like training the mind in a new habit, staying in one place, doing one thing at a time, with full presence. A Zen master once said, "When washing the dishes, just wash the dishes. Do not wash the dishes thinking of the cup of tea you will drink afterward. If you wash the dishes only thinking of drinking tea, then when drinking tea you will think of something else, and you will never truly live in the present moment." It sounds simple, but practicing it requires patience. Mindfulness is not about trying to hold the mind, but gently calling it back whenever it wanders. Mindfulness also helps us respond more skillfully. When angry without mindfulness, we easily say or do something we regret. But if we can recognize, this is anger, we can pause, breathe deeply, and give ourselves time to calm down. It is like holding a match, knowing that striking it will start a fire, and choosing instead to put it down. There are many ways to practice mindfulness, but one of the most basic is following the breath. The breath is always there, a bridge between body and mind. Whenever the mind is restless, simply returning to the rhythm of breathing in and out, we can feel peace gradually returning. Mindfulness also allows us to savor joy more fully. A meal, a gentle afternoon, sunlight, a loved one's laughter, these small things, when we are fully present, become deep sources of happiness. And it is precisely these simple moments that nourish the heart, giving us strength to face difficulties. Mindfulness does not promise that we will never encounter suffering, but it helps us walk through suffering without being drowned by it. Like a rower facing large waves, rather than resisting blindly, they keep balance and row with the current. Living mindfully is the same. We know impermanence is real, suffering is real, yet we continue with calmness, for the mind is anchored in the present. If compassion is the heart of Buddhism, then wisdom is the clear eyes that help us see the path. Compassion without wisdom may become indulgence, making others dependent. Wisdom without compassion may become cold and distant. This is why the Buddha always emphasized balance between the two. Like the wings of a bird, only when both are strong can it fly far. Wisdom in Buddhism is not just book knowledge or sharp intellect, but the ability to see all phenomena as they truly are. Seeing impermanence, we do not cling. Seeing non-self, we become less selfish. Seeing karma, we learn to plant wholesome causes to reap wholesome fruits. This is the wisdom the Buddha called prajna, the light that dispels ignorance. An old story tells of a king seeking a worthy heir. He gave his 3 sons each a bag of seeds and instructed them, "Plant these seeds, care for them, and return in 1 year." 2 sons cultivated abundantly and proudly showed off their harvest. The youngest returned with the bag of seeds intact, bowing and saying, "Father, I planted them, but they did not sprout. Later I learned the seeds had been boiled beforehand, so no matter what I did, they could not grow. I dared not replace them with others to deceive you." The king smiled and declared him the heir, for he had the wisdom to see the truth and the courage to live honestly. Wisdom helps us discern what is true from false, what should be done and what should be avoided. In modern life, information floods us, not all of it true. Without wisdom, we are easily led by rumors, fake news, or fleeting emotions. But one with wisdom pauses, observes, and verifies before believing or acting. Wisdom also helps us look deeply into ourselves. Often we think suffering comes from others or circumstances, but in truth, much of it arises from our own perceptions and attitudes. A single criticism may hurt us all day, but another person may feel nothing at all. The difference lies in perception and understanding. Wisdom gives us the ability to shift perspectives and thereby transform emotions. Practicing wisdom is not about memorizing scriptures, but applying the teachings to life. In conflict, wisdom reminds us to listen before reacting. In temptation, wisdom reminds us to consider long-term consequences. When praised, wisdom reminds us not to be arrogant. When criticized, wisdom reminds us not to lose heart. The Buddha taught a method to cultivate wisdom known as hearing, reflecting, practicing. Hearing is learning authentic teachings. Reflecting is contemplating deeply. Practicing is applying them in daily life. If we only hear without reflection, we may fall into blind faith. If we only reflect without practice, wisdom does not take root. All three are needed for wisdom to grow firm. Wisdom does not come in a single day, but through continuous observation. Each time we face difficulty, ask, "What lesson can I learn from this?" Over time, these lessons accumulate into a precious treasure, making us more resilient through change. One with wisdom is like a traveler in the night carrying a lantern. The road still has stones and potholes, but the light allows them to see ahead and avoid stumbling. And when wisdom lights the way, compassion knows how to spread skillfully, bringing real benefit to oneself and others. After speaking of wisdom, the natural next step is happiness, for it is what most of us are seeking. But if we look closely, how many times have we thought we would be happy once we achieved something, only for that joy to fade soon after? This happens because we often place happiness outside ourselves, instead of finding it within. The Buddha taught that happiness is not a reward at the end of the path, but how we walk upon it. When the mind is calm, any circumstance can be fertile ground for happiness. When the mind is disturbed, even amidst comforts, happiness is hard to find. There is a story of a man who spent his whole life saving money to buy a house by the sea, believing only then he would be truly happy. On moving in, he was filled with joy at the ocean breeze and waves. But after a few months, he grew annoyed at the salt corroding furniture, the storms causing leaks. He then dreamed of another perfect place. And so the cycle of seeking continued. We are often the same. By placing happiness in external conditions, wealth, fame, other people, we hand over the key to something beyond our control. When those conditions change, happiness vanishes. But when we root happiness in inner peace, we find contentment even when life is imperfect. True happiness comes from small, ordinary things. A warm family meal, a quiet morning with a cup of tea, an embrace after a long day. The difference lies in whether we recognize and appreciate them. Mindfulness, as mentioned earlier, is the doorway into this treasury of happiness already present. Interestingly, happiness grows the more it is shared. When we help someone, even with just a word of encouragement or a small act, their joy reflects back into us. This is why compassion and happiness always go hand in hand. A heart that knows how to love not only brings peace to others, but also to itself. However, happiness does not mean never facing difficulties. Life inevitably has both storms and sunshine. One with wisdom and mindfulness does not try to completely remove suffering, but learns to find happiness even in challenges. Sometimes it is difficulties themselves that help us better appreciate what we already have. The practice of nurturing happiness begins by returning to ourselves. Each day, set aside even just 5-10 minutes to sit quietly, breathe deeply, and recognize what you are grateful for. Write down 3 things that made you smile. Over time, the mind will develop a habit of seeking out joy, instead of only focusing on what is lacking. Happiness also comes from letting go of unrealistic expectations. When we demand less that life always go our way, we create space for surprise and gratitude. There are days when things do not follow our plans, but if we shift our perspective, we can still find reasons to be thankful. Ultimately, true happiness is not at the destination, but in the way we walk. If every step carries peace, if every breath carries gratitude, then happiness is no longer distant. It is here and now. After all that we have explored together in this series, from letting go, mindfulness, wisdom, to nurturing happiness, perhaps the most important thing to remember is this: the path of practice is not a race with a finish line, but a lifelong journey. Each day we live, each action we take, each thought we have is a step along that path. The Buddha never said he grants happiness or peace to anyone. He only pointed the way. Whether we walk or not, whether we walk quickly or slowly, whether we walk with what kind of heart, that is each of our choices. And the wonderful thing is, each time we take even a single mindful step, the path opens further before us. Many think that practice is only for the elderly, for those who have finished their worldly duties. But in truth, practice is for all ages, all circumstances. The young practice to live in the right direction from the beginning. Those in middle age practice to balance work and inner life. The elderly practice to let go of worries and rest peacefully in their twilight years. There is never a too early or too late to begin. On this journey, there will be times we feel progress, but also times it seems we are standing still or even falling back. This is normal. The mind is like the weather, sometimes sunny, sometimes cloudy. What matters is not to give up. When clouds clear, the sun shines again. When the mind is calm, wisdom arises once more. Remember, a little letting go each day, a little compassion each day, a little mindfulness each day. Over time, these become great strength. We don't need to change everything overnight. Just being a little better today than yesterday allows wholesome seeds within us to grow, until one day we realize we are living differently, lighter, deeper, more peaceful. A Zen story tells of someone who asked a master, "What do you do to attain peace?" The master smiled. "When hungry, I eat. When tired, I sleep." The man was puzzled. "But everyone does that." The master replied, "Not the same. Ordinary people, when eating, their minds are elsewhere. When sleeping, their minds are still worried. I, when eating, just eat. When sleeping, just sleep. That is the difference. Peace is not in what we do, but in how we are fully present in it. When we understand this, we no longer rush to find some destination for peace, but learn to enjoy each step. The path is never boring, for each moment is fresh when we are truly present. And we are not walking alone. Even if at times practice feels lonely, out there are many others also moving toward awakening. Seek and connect with them. Fellow practitioners, uplifting books, mindful communities. We support one another, remind one another, and walk through difficulties together. The path of peace is a journey with no end point. But that is precisely its beauty. Because every day is a new opportunity to practice, to love, to understand, to live more deeply. And when we live this way, we bring peace not only to ourselves, but radiate it to those around us. When people speak of peace, many imagine it as something that comes only when all tasks are done, when there are no responsibilities, when life is settled. But if we look closely, we see this is a trap of the mind. The stability we imagine is fragile, and the human mind always finds reasons to be restless, even when things are relatively calm. The Buddha pointed out that peace is not a reward after finishing everything, but a state we can cultivate amidst the busyness. In the Samyukta Agama, he taught, "One who knows contentment, even lying on the ground, is joyful. One who does not know contentment, even in heaven, is not satisfied." This simple line contains the secret of living. There was once a wealthy merchant in the Buddha's time, whom everyone assumed must be happy, having everything in his hands. But when he met the Buddha, he confessed, "Blessed One, I have too much to worry about. Possessions, workers, shipments. I cannot sleep well. My mind is always restless." The Buddha simply asked, "If you loosened your grip on all these things, would your mind feel lighter?" The question awakened him. He realized he had spent his whole life protecting wealth, yet had never truly lived a single day fully. From then, he practiced letting go, not abandoning his wealth, but releasing attachment in his heart. Whether at home or at work, he always kept a quiet space inside so peace could not be stolen by fear of loss. In modern life, we are much like that merchant. We are consumed by countless worries: work, money, family, the future. We believe we must finish everything before allowing ourselves to rest. But the truth is, we will never finish everything. There will always be more emails, new projects, more bills. If we don't learn to pause and cultivate peace now, we will never touch it. Practicing the Buddha's teaching, we can begin with small things. In the morning, instead of checking the phone right away, sit quietly for a few minutes and feel your breath. During work, instead of jumping straight to the next task, stand, relax your shoulders, and smile gently. Before bed, write down 3 things you are grateful for today. The important thing is to realize peace does not depend on external circumstances, but on how our mind receives them. When the mind knows contentment, knows when to stop, knows how to let go, then even in the marketplace, it can be as serene as in the forest. On the other hand, when the mind is ruled by greed, anger, and delusion, even sitting on a throne feels restless. Someone once asked a Zen master, "How can I be at peace amidst pressure and change?" The master replied, "Do not seek peace outside. Create it within, then bring it out to live with the world." Therefore, instead of endlessly running on the wheel of anxiety, learn to step off, at least for a few minutes each day. In that time, we do not need to solve every problem, make plans, or check results. Just be fully present with the breath, with a cup of tea, or with the sound of birds outside the window. That is when we are returning home, the home of inner peace. A Zen story tells of a young monk who asked his master, "Master, I wish to be at peace, but I find my mind constantly pulled by unfinished tasks, by others' words, and by vague fears. How can I keep my peace in this life?" The master did not answer right away, but led him outside, gave him a bowl full of water, and said, "Walk around the temple, but do not let the water spill." The novice walked carefully, eyes fixed on the bowl, not spilling a drop. When he returned, the master asked, "On your walk, did you hear the birds singing? Did you see the flowers blooming?" The novice shook his head. "No, master, I was focused only on keeping the water steady." The master smiled. Peace is the same. When your mind stays fixed on one point and is not dragged away, the things outside will not disturb you. See, this story is not only about concentration, but also reminds us that peace is not eliminating all noise, but keeping the mind steady amidst the noise. Like a sailor who cannot control the wind but can adjust the sails to avoid being swept away. In life, the winds, praise and blame, gain and loss, winning and losing, will always blow. If we let our mind drift with them, we will be exhausted. But if we anchor the mind in mindfulness and core values, then even when the wind blows strong, the boat remains steady. The Buddha taught that the mind is the root of all suffering and happiness. When ruled by greed, we are pulled into endless chasing. When ruled by anger, we burn ourselves and those around us. When clouded by delusion, we lose our way in ignorance. But when filled with mindfulness and wisdom, outside events are like passing clouds that cannot disturb the clear sky. In today's age, one major reason people struggle to find peace is information overload. Each day, we are pulled into hundreds of news updates, notifications, messages, and videos. It is like trying to hold a bowl of water while running and looking everywhere. Before we know it, the water spills. That is why a simple yet crucial practice is reducing what we take in. Each day, set aside time to turn off the phone, stay off social media, and instead read a book. Breathe quietly or walk outdoors. When the mind is not overloaded, it more easily becomes calm. Peace must also be trained like a muscle. If we only hope someday to be at peace without practicing daily, it will not happen. Begin with very small acts. When eating, just eat. When walking, just walk. When listening, just listen without rushing to respond. Each time we do this, we pour cool water into the inner lake of peace. Another thing to remember, peace does not mean avoiding difficulties. Rather, it is the ability to face them with steadiness. Some people, after great trials such as illness or loss, discover that peace is not the absence of storms, but the art of sailing through them with awareness. When we accept suffering as part of life, we are less shocked, less resistant, and find gentler ways forward. Thus, peace is not a gift from outside, but a skill and wisdom we cultivate ourselves. It begins in moments when we return to care for the mind, keeping the bowl of water within from spilling with waves of emotion. And once we have inner peace, only then can we truly share it with the world. Interestingly, the deeper we go in practice, the more we realize that peace is not something to find, but something to return to. Like a clear lake, always still at its depths, only disturbed on the surface by winds and stones. When the winds stop and the stones settle, the lake is calm again. Our mind is the same. Peace is already within, only disturbed by greed, anger, and delusion. The path back to peace begins by seeing clearly the causes of our unrest. A Zen story tells of a practitioner who lived on a mountain for 20 years, meditating and chanting daily. One day, coming down to the marketplace, he saw people quarreling and felt anger rise in him. He realized that even after decades in seclusion, his mind was still easily stirred. From then, he chose to live among the bustling streets, training himself to remain peaceful amidst noise. Years later, he smiled and said, "Now even a noisy market cannot make noise in my heart." This story reminds us that true peace does not depend on place, but on inner strength. In modern life, we may not be able to abandon work, family, and duties to live on a mountain, but we can learn to live in the marketplace as if in the mountains. That is when we work without letting stress consume us, meet others without being caught in gossip, face difficulties without letting them steal our clarity. Each day, we can take a few minutes in the morning to breathe deeply, observe the mind before entering the day's rush, or when tension rises, pause for a few breaths to reset the rhythm of life. Peace also comes from letting go. Letting go here does not mean neglect, but releasing unnecessary expectations and pointless comparisons. Much of our weariness comes from wanting everything to follow our will, but life never runs according to anyone's will. Understanding and accepting this brings lightness. The Buddha said, "Nothing in this world belongs to me." Understood deeply, this helps us stop clinging too tightly and suffering when things change. Another helpful practice is gratitude. When we are grateful for what we have, we chase less after what we lack. Each night before sleep, recall 3 things to be grateful for. Perhaps a good meal, a joyful conversation, or a quiet moment. This habit gradually fills the heart with contentment and peace. Walking this path, we see that peace is not the final destination, but the way we walk each day. It is in how we eat a meal without hurry, how we listen without judgment, how we face challenges without panic. And just like the Dharma wheel turns steadily, our path of practice requires persistence, each small turn carrying us closer to deep peace. If you have followed along to this point, you may already feel some change in your heart, even if just a little. Remember, only a few minutes each day of returning to yourself will gradually make peace a natural part of life. And once peace is within, it will naturally spread to others, like a lamp lighting many others without losing its own flame. If you have listened until now, it means you have given your precious time to a meeting with yourself through the Buddha's teachings. May each idea, each story in this series plant a seed in your heart, the seed of understanding, compassion, and peace. If you find these reflections helpful, please support Dharma in Motion by liking this video so it can reach more people, and subscribing so you don't miss new content. Each subscription not only helps this channel grow, but also brings the Dharma closer to those seeking light in the midst of a busy life. May you be peaceful in every breath, steady in every step, and smiling in every moment. See you again in the next sharings of Dharma in Motion.